Hi, this is Teresa from Color Crazy. I recently finished the design for the Summer Bouquet kit. It's the fourth in the series that completes the garden panel collection. This video covers tips and techniques. It's not designed to cover every step, just enough details to show you how to complete the design elements. So let's get started. To begin, I'd like to cover a couple of key steps. And the first one is about framing your edge. When you're framing your edge with the ribbon and the tapestry needle, you're going to get to corners that are pretty tight, but you also want to make sure that you cover them well. So do a couple of stitches in each corner at least, and use your fingers to make sure the ribbon is placed perfectly, and you give a nice tug to make sure that you've covered that edge and that corner very well. And you just keep going and you frame the rest of the canvas. I also want to cover working on the outer rows of your design. These 4 outer rows are going to create the frame for the design, and you want to pull up loops that are at least 3/8 inches high, maybe a 1/2 inch high, and you keep doing that. And then there's the 3rd row in the center that'll be about a 1/4 inch high, and just like that. To mark the pattern on the canvas, I like using a permanent marker like the Sharpie. And you just want to get the outer edges of the design elements. For the sunflower, you just want to mark the outer bits of the petals to give you an idea of where the spacing is. The stitches for the petals don't have to be precise, but you do want to make sure you know how far they extend. And there's going to be short petals and long petals, and you kind of want to mark the edges to give you an idea as you're stitching how far out you want to go. One thing about the canvas is that it's not always perfectly square. Sometimes the length or the width is a little narrower or longer. So to get your design elements right, you want to make sure that you're aligning the side edges with the pattern perfectly. That way your design elements will be marked at the right place and as far as it needs to be from the edge. You want the number of rows to be perfect, and so just align them with the very edge and then start marking your pattern. And here we're locker hooking around the center of the sunflower with yarn. The yarn called for in the pattern calls for 3 yards, and you want to fold it over because you're pulling it up doubled up. And just hold it in the back with your hand like this as you pull up loops. And I always like to fold the canvas over because it makes it a lot easier. So you can fold it over if it helps you. I think it's much easier this way, so you can pull up loops just like this. And here we're beginning to stitch the sunflower petals around the center. For the petals, you're going to be going around 4 times and stitching different levels of petals. And you kind of want to match the pattern, but you don't have to match it precisely. We've marked the petals where they end, and that gives you an idea of how far out to go for the petal stitches. So just start stitching and don't worry about precisely where they have to go. You'll eventually fill it in nicely. There we go. And then you just pull it out and give it a nice little tug, and then place the needle through more or less where the marking is and continue all the way around. And this will be your first round of petal stitches. Here's how your sunflower looks after the first round of petal stitches. I've used 2 1-yard strips so far and have some left over. And here's the sunflower with 2 rounds of petal stitches. It's not perfectly filled in, but we are getting ready now to start stitching the accent strips. and this is in a 1/2 inch wide color per the pattern. You want to thread your tapestry needle with that and stitch according to the pattern. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly matching, but you want to go in between the long stitches of petals, just as it's shown here in the accent color. So try to stitch in between the long stitches. And we're going to start right here. And make sure that when you're pulling up, you do not snag the yarn. It's a nicely woven yarn and it's easy to get the needle caught up in there. So just pay a little attention to pulling up the needle through there. There we go, there's a first stitch. And you can use your needle to kind of adjust. Here's how your sunflower will look once you have the accent stitches in place. This is the 3rd round of petal stitches, and now we're going to work on the last and 4th round of petal stitches with another 1 yard strip of the 3/4 inch in yellow. And here I'm trying to make sure it does not snag the yarn. It's kind of tight, but let me make sure. Looks good. Okay. So just pull up, and then what you want to do for this 4th round is go over your long stitches. So basically you're kind of stitching over those first long stitches, the longest ones, and go all the way around. And this is just going to add a nice layer and pad your stitches just a little bit to make it look a little nicer. There we go, just like that. So you just work that all the way around. Here's the finished sunflower, and now we're going to add a little padding to make it be a little more prominent amongst the locker hook background. We're going to do that with 2 yards of yarn doubled up like this. It's 2 yards of bulky yarn, and with your locker hook you weave in underneath, and you're basically using the locker hook to stitch in the yarn. So gently work your locker hook through with the yarn and gently pull the yarn through until it's fed through and you don't see the edges there. And then you continue to do this all the way around. You're going to go around 2 to 3 times. I think 2 is enough, but if you'd like to go around 3 times to give it a nice extra padded look, that's perfectly fine. And you just keep stitching and feeding it through, just like this. And this is how it looks when you're done stitching the yarn through. And then you just want to clip it really close to the petal, carefully. And there we go, it's done. And it's nice and padded, gives it a nice full look. I just wanted to show a little bit about working on the dahlia on the right. Here I am locker hooking around the center, which has already been locker hooked, and you want to pull up loops that are 1/4 inch high as you work around the center. And then as you work around, you want to gradually go higher to about 3/8 inch and 1/2 inch high loops as you get to the outer rows or circles. So here we have the center of the dahlia. It's in a perfect round, and you can see some of these loops here are about 3/8 inches high, and some may be a little higher because they're interspersed according to the pattern. But I wanted to show you how this dahlia is designed like an oval, and you're going to want to go back and forth here to fill in this ovaled area. So that's what we're going to do. And I also want to show you how you can travel your locking medium and sometimes your fabric strips on the back. And I'm going to have to move my way over here, maybe just go through one of these loops to get to where I need to be. And then you travel your locking medium and pick up your strip in the back and start locker hooking to fill that area. Here we have the dahlia completely locker hooked. I just have to sew in this additional locking medium. And locking medium is great because it holds your loops together, but it also helps draw them together and create direction. I'm just going to continue to sew this locking medium in around the dahlia shape to gather it around. Always use your fingers to shape as you work. And we're going to just sew the rest of this all the way around the dahlia to bring it together. I started working on the background here, and I want to show you how you need to get really close to the petals to get great coverage. So I'm going to take another stitch here, and then I also want to show you how you can travel your locking medium in the front and then your fabric strip in the back to continue working. So we're going to go right through these loops here and get kind of close. That's good right there. So we're going to pull that through and then start locker hooking on the other side of the petal. And you want to get really close. So we're going to go right there, and then you just pull up your fabric strip, and I just pulled that fabric strip and traveled it behind the petal, and you just keep going. So this is what you want to do as you're working around the sunflower. And here I want to show you how sometimes you need to move your locking medium. I have a couple of loops here that I already pulled up, and I need to get locking medium through them. So I'm going to take the locking medium to the back and move it behind the petal, and then pull it back up where I need it to work it through these loops that still need locking medium. And you can do this as you work around the sunflower as needed. To add texture to the dahlia, you want to pull up loops of ribbon, and this adds a really nice shimmer and texture as well. And to do this, you just use your hook without locking medium and go in every other square, not every square, just to give it some nice texture. You pull up your ribbon loop and adjust it with your fingers, and pull with your hand in the back to adjust it right above the fabric strip loops, just like that. To add a padded look to your leaves, you want to use about half a yard of the sage ribbon. This will add a nice shimmering padded look. And thread it through your tapestry needle, and what you're going to be doing is taking stitches around the center that basically wrap the center. So work your way from the very tip and take stitches just around the center part. And as you're doing this, make sure that your ribbon always stays flat. Use your fingers to arrange as you work, as needed. And also make sure that the stitches are snug, not too snug, just nice snug coverage. And you'll be doing this just around the center, and it'll take about maybe 4 or 5 stitches to complete the center padded area. To create your amaranth tassels, you want to take a piece of the yarn according to the pattern and start by making a slip knot. And then you're going to use your locker hook, and with the locker hook you are going to crochet a very simple chain stitch. And as you're doing this, you want to take very loose stitches. And this is a really nicely woven yarn, so be careful not to snag the yarn. Just carefully and loosely make those stitches until you get it to the right length. I think this needs a couple of more stitches and then we'll be done. And then when you get to the end, to tie it off, you just pull the end bit through the last stitch and then give it a tug. Yes, that does look good. Just like that. To attach your amaranth tassels, you're going to use your locker hook to take the tail ends of the tassel and work them through to the back. And you make sure you know where you're placing them and move your hook through to the back, and then thread it through the needle eye of the locker hook and pull through. And you do that with both ends of your tassel. And then once it's in the back, you can either tie it off or glue it in place. But you want to make sure you place it exactly where you want it. Then move your hook through, thread the tail end through the needle eye, and then work it through the back. To place and secure your tassels in the front, I like using quick grip, and these mini quick grips work really well. You just need a little drop of glue to place and secure your tassels. The center of sunflowers are made up of hundreds of tiny little flowers. To recreate this look, take a strip of yarn according to the pattern and tie a knot at the end. Tie a very tight knot. And then use a pair of really sharp craft scissors and cut the tip very close to the knot. Then you're going to use your locker hook to thread this through to the back to create that tiny flower look. Push the back end up and then thread the end through the needle eye and pull it to the back. And then use the locker hook on the front side to pull up the tail, the other tail end, to the front to create another tiny little accent. You pull it to the front, and then you just want to tie another knot and do the same thing again. Oops. Clip close to the knot. Just like that, and then you're going to pull the excess yarn to the back. And there it is. I think that one got a little bit too buried, but you can always use your fingers to adjust. I hope you enjoy making the summer bouquet panel and try one of the other kits in the garden panel collection. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can find my contact information at colorcrazy.com.